To start the letter image project, we're going to create a new document. So let's start off at the welcome page, and now we're going to hit new file. We want this to be a letter size document, so over here we're going to make it 8.5 by 11 inches. You can actually change it to being landscape depending on your design. You can do that later though. Let's just start with a regular document, and remember, we always name things with your name and then the project. Great, and now we're going to hit create, and we end up with a blank document. If you want, you can turn your rulers on. You can do that by hitting Command or Control R, or over here in the properties panel. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do here is get your image. We want to get whatever image you are working on. I'm doing a watering can, and after a lot of searching, I've decided to go with this watering can. When you copy and paste things, it's always better to click on it, click on the thumbnail, so that way you get the bigger picture. That will just make it clearer. Now, you don't even need to download this. You can really just copy and paste. Pasting is Command or Control V. You can also go to Edit, Paste. Okay, and that's how we get our reference picture into Illustrator. Now, just like with the palm leaf, I'm going to keep my picture on one layer. I'm going to turn this down to 50%. That's going to make it easier to trace later. And then I'm going to make a new layer. So my tracing is going to be done on layer 2. My image is on layer 1. I'm locking layer 1 by hitting this blank square. And now we are ready to start. Okay, when we are tracing the shape, and that's how we're going to be doing this, there are a few ways you can do it. I'm going to start just by doing it in the most basic way possible, and that's by tracing the outline. I'm going to hit P for pen, and then just like with the palm leaf, I'm really just going to be tracing it. I want to point out that not a good practice. I'm tracing with the fill on. That's not ideal. And it's white, so it's going to be really hard to see. I'm going over to swatches. I'm going to change this to no fill. I'm going to change the stroke. Often I like to trace in magenta, but I'm working off of a pink watering can, so today I'm going to work on blue. Okay, now I can keep tracing even though I've just done that, so now I'm going to keep going. And I'm dragging when I want to, but really the best way to do this is honestly just to drop your points and fix them later. So I'm going to do that for the rest of it. Okay, let's do a line. Point there, a point there. Okay, and then I will convert my points. I also want to say that when I make my pictures in these demonstration videos, I'm really prioritizing speed because I want these videos to be shorter, to make them easier to digest for you guys. When you work on your projects, you should prioritize quality over doing it quickly. Okay, so here is and let's hit A to get the direct selection tool that will let me move this point. Okay, so here's my watering can. I just traced it, wasn't that fast. Now, if we turn off the eyeball of the picture, we'll see my picture. This is kind of recognizable, but it certainly isn't interesting. To make it more recognizable, I suppose I would hit P to get the pen and get the inside over here. There we go, and now, okay, so this is more recognizable. It's certainly not interesting because this is just a blocked shape. When we're tracing this, you're going to want to make it out of positive and negative shapes. That's going to be what makes it interesting. So let me show you what I mean. Here's an example of a finished version of this done out of shapes. So instead of, oops, sorry, this is the letter. We don't need these yet. Instead of making the watering can out of one shape, we're going to be breaking down this picture into smaller shapes and combining those smaller shapes to make something that's more interesting. So you can see that this is a shape. This is a shape. This is a shape, right? Anything that's a shape is movable. All of these pieces, everywhere there's a color change, they're different either shapes or lines. And now I want to show you what it's going to look like when you put the letter in. Here we can see that the letter contrasting with the shape is what makes it interesting, as opposed to just like this basic outline of a shape. That's kind of boring. Okay, so let us delete this. I'm just scrolling over it and hitting delete. Let me show you how we do this. So the first thing we're going to do is try to understand what we're looking at, try to break this thing into smaller shapes. So I'm just going to basically try to visualize this quickly. This isn't necessarily going to be my final version. And I also one more comment. This project is a black and white project. When you're doing these initial tracings, I recommend doing this with a color just because it's easier to look at to begin with. And then once you have your shapes, you can change all the colors to either black or white. So first you're making the shapes, then once all the shapes are created, you can decide what to make black and white later. Okay, so I'm seeing that the base of the shape is the can, then we have the top of the can, and these are not necessarily accurate shapes right now. They're just first impression shapes. I'm just using the ellipse tool. Use the pen tool when you need it, but you can definitely and should use these shape tools when you have an ellipse or perfect rectangle. Take advantage. It makes things faster and more accurate. Okay, now instead of making a new ellipse, I'm going to hit Command or Control C to copy, and Control or Command V pastes, but Control or Command F pastes in place. So now we have two of those, and you can see in here that there's two ellipses. When you want to see what's in your layers, you can hit this little caret thing, and every shape is its own layer. Every vector shape is its own layer. So let me just show you what I mean in a more complicated file. So here, every single thing that I've made is its own editable shape. And that's one of the best things about Illustrator, is that everything is editable. You never have to get anything right the first time. Okay, so we have two of these. Now I'm going to hit Shift and Option. Option will make it so you resize towards the center, and Shift will constrain the proportion. So I'm holding Shift and Command, and now I have an inner lip. I can then let's say subtract this shape. Nope, not the shape, the point. That didn't work as well as I wanted, but let's just keep going. I also see that this is a shape. You know what, just for the sake of notes, I'm going to actually use the paintbrush tool, which you can get with the B, just so I can show you guys what I'm breaking down. Okay, so basically I see this as a shape, I see this as a shape, I see the main body as a shape with highlights of its own, and we can even add some highlights here. I did not do that in my other version. These two are shapes, this is a shape, the top is a shape, and then the handle is a shape. Okay, so obviously these blobs is not what I'm trying to get to, but the point is I want you, before you even start, to just break down what you're looking at into different shapes so you can approach it smaller. So instead of visualizing it as a whole watering can, the idea is to start visualizing it as little pieces. Okay, so let's go over to the spout. Okay, so the spout is this over here, and then Command or Control C, Command or Control F to paste it in place. Then I'm going to hit Option Shift so I can make it into the center. make it resize to the center. Now I'm going to use the pen tool to make this trapezoid. Then I'm going to hit A so I can move this piece. Now I'm going to hit P to get the pen tool. Okay. Now that we have the shape, oh, and look, we see that there's this highlight. That highlight's going to make things much more interesting. Okay, so now that we see the spout, let's bring it all together by changing the colors. We can also, we see that there are those little details over here. I kind of improvised and changed it, but let's see, we can make a little ellipse. Now instead of making all of these little ellipses, I'm actually going to duplicate these. So here's a neat little trick. If you want to duplicate something, you can select the object with the selection tool. You get it by hitting V, hold down Option on a Mac or Alt on a PC, and then you just drag it out. And then we can cover these with little spouts. I'm going to stop here just for the sake of speed for you guys. Okay, now that I have my shape, I'm going to start choosing what to make black and what to make white. I think I'm going to make this over here black, which means I'm going to make this white. I want to get rid of my blue outlines. I'm going to choose all of these and I'm going to make them black as well. I think I'm also going to make this black. And now we see that this is, and I don't need an outline here at all, this is obscuring the top of the spout, and that's because of how they're layered. You can see in the layers panel that this is on top of the other stuff. I just want it to be behind, and then our problem is solved. You can drag things manually. You can also hit Control or Command Shift bracket. The left bracket's gonna bring things to the front. The right bracket's gonna, the right one brings things to the front, the left one brings it to the back. Now we do need a line over here. And let's also make this line up. We're gonna need a line over here so that way we can distinguish the shape of this part and the spout. Also because if we look at the actual thing, there's probably a highlight from where the light is hitting it. So that's where you'd get that white outline. So we just need to select the shape and make an outline. Now let's see what happens when we turn the picture off. So we see this cute little spout. Okay, and we can keep going. I'm going to make this black. Instead of using the clicking black and turning the stroke off every time, I'm actually going to use the eyedropper tool that's right here and eyedrop a color. It just saves a few hand motions. And then over here, I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to eyedrop white. We can use the direct selection tool to make things look a little nicer. There we go. And now we have a pretty nice spout. So that's basically how you would want to approach every part of this project. You're breaking down the big shapes into smaller shapes and tracing the smaller shapes and then putting it all together at the end. I'm going to expand on this in the next video and talk about how you can fine-tune things as you go.